everybody. I'm Kim Marquette. I'm the president of the Straight Farmhouse Museum. We are so excited, and on behalf of the Straight Farmhouse, we are honored that you are here today to join us in honoring these wonderful women of World War II, our Rosies. I'd also like to take time right now to recognize our dignitaries that are here with us today. We have from the 12th District House of U.S. Representatives, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib is here. And just so you all know, we are not allowing our dignitaries to come up today and speak because of the heat. So we are going to try to move our program on a little bit for everybody. But we want to thank Rashida. She gave us earlier this beautiful plaque that we'll be able to hang up dedicating today in our memorial garden. Also here today is Senator Dana Polehanki. Thank you, Dana. From Wayne County, County Commissioner Dave Kniezek, longtime friend of Garden City. And representing our city, Garden City Mayor Mark Jacobs. Mayor Pro Tem Kim Dole. Councilwoman Stacy Karafotis. Councilman Zachary Witt. Garden City Garden Club President Pat McCarge. Members of our American Legion. Members of our Garden City Historical Commission are here, the Straight Farmhouse Board of Directors. So on behalf of the Straight Farmhouse, we would like to thank you all for your dedication to our state and our city. We are honored to have you here with us today and making history here at the Straight Farmhouse. At this time, I would like to introduce to you one of the most dedicated women I know. I'm going to get teary-eyed a couple times today, but don't worry about it. She is the driving force behind the Michigan Willow Run chapter of the American Rosie the Riveters Association. The president, Jeanette Gutierrez.
And I want to say, this lady is so much fun to work with, and all of the beautiful detail, the settings, everything you see here is her work and her wonderful team of volunteers, and it's just such a beautiful event, and I'm so honored to be a part of it. I do want to thank everyone for being here on behalf of the American Rosie the Riveter Association. We're an all-volunteer, nonprofit organization founded in 1998 in Alabama by the World War II Rosies themselves for fellowship and to preserve their legacy. And we are so glad to be here in fellowship with some living World War II folks, and I would like to introduce them to you. I'm just going to go around the table. We have Delphine Tedeschi Clayput, who was a Rosie the Riveter at Glen Martin Aircraft Factory in Essex, Maryland during the war, building aircraft for the war. Then we have Rosie the Riveter Virginia Rush. Virginia waves so they can see which way I'm going around the table. Virginia worked at Republic Aircraft in Detroit as a riveter, and she's our baby because she was only 15 when she went to work for the war effort. So she's our little baby of what, 97, 96? Yay, Virginia. Oh, and to give you a little more detail about Delphine, she carried top secret blueprints around the factory. So
Don't tell anybody.
then on the other side of Virginia Rush, we have Mr. George Leland, a World War II combat veteran of the United States Army Air Force. He served with the 460th Bomb Group out of Spinazzola, Italy, and flew 28 bombing missions over Europe. And then on the other side of George, we have Rosie the Riveter, Virginia Bassler, and I'm not going to share her age with you, but she is our oldest Rosie, and she worked at the mighty Willow Run bomber plant during World War II, and on the B-24 aircraft that George flew. And not only was she a Rosie the Riveter, but she extended her patriotism further by enlisting in the United States service as a Coast Guard spar during World War II. Now, World War II was the first time women were allowed to join the service. So Virginia is also a World War II veteran. And then on the other side of Virginia, we have Rosie the Riveter Joan Finley. And Joan is also a baby Rosie because there is an important part of the Rosie the Riveter story, and that is our volunteer Rosie the Riveters. Women not only worked in the factories, they volunteered on the home front to keep things going. But Joan isn't technically a volunteer because as a child, she worked in her family's grocery store during World War II, and it was her job to count ration stamps and bundle them and deliver them to the government at the end of the week. So her service during the war is certainly something that we all needed, and big hand for Joan Finley. And on the other side of Joan, we have Mr. Cliff Elvira, who is a World War II combat veteran, and he was in the United States Navy. And Cliff landed on Omaha Beach at 6:30 in the morning on D-Day, June 6, 1944. So definitely an eyewitness to history here. And on the other side of Cliff, we have Emma Timmerman, who was a Rosie the Riveter during World War II, and she worked, along with her mom, at the Stinson Aircraft Factory in Wayne, Michigan. And Emma worked in the mailroom, I believe, and her mom worked on the line, and they built, right here in Wayne, nearby, they built the L-13 Grasshopper lightweight reconnaissance aircraft. And then we have Mr. Henry Timmerman, Emma's husband of, is it 76 years or 77 years that they've been married? And Henry was born in Germany as a small child, came over, and when he tried to enlist, they would not take him. And so he tried 3 times to enlist, did not succeed, and decided to serve his country on the home front by helping to build the war plants in the area. So he helped to build, as a carpenter, he helped to build the Chrysler tank plant, many other plants in the area, and he also helped to build the Norwayne worker housing right nearby in Westland. And if you want to know anything about Wayne or Westland history, or probably Garden City too, ask Henry, because he remembers everything. Mr. Henry Timmerman.
still there. That's because you built it strong.
Yeah, it's
All
still
right. We would also like to recognize our other heroes that are with us. Our American heroes, those men and women who served our great nation in one way or another in our armed forces. If you would please rise so we may honor you. We thank you so much for your service to our country. Give these great Americans, our heroes, please stand, remain standing, whoops, for us. Wind's getting me here. As our riveters are coming around, they are passing out pocket flags for you to carry. These pocket flags were folded by students at the Berger Baylor and Berger Transition Center for students with autism, and their staff helped them fold those for you. So those are for you. If I could ask everyone to please stand, we're going to open our ceremony with the our dedication ceremony with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if I could have everybody stand and face the flag. Flag's right here. We had to kind of tie her down a little bit because she was whipping around and we were afraid people were going to get hurt. So please join with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. And now Jeanette's going to speak about the ringing of the bells to us.
So we're going to start out today with something kind of fun and special. It's called Ring a Bell for Rosie on Labor Day. And I'm not sure the origin of this custom, but for about 5, 6, or 7 years now, all across America and even in some places in Europe, on Labor Day, people gather together or alone in their homes, and they ring a bell for Rosie the Riveter in honor of the labor that she did during World War II that helped to ensure victory. But before we launch into that, our American Rosie the Riveter Association Rosie Lunchbox Drill Team is going to perform a little cheer for Rosie. Ready, gals? Forward march. Ready, in place. Rosie Lunchbox Drill Team, go.
Rosie on the rivet line,
Rosie on the rivet line,
working lots of overtime,
working lots of overtime,
building planes and tanks and more.
building planes and tanks and more.
Rosie helped us win the war.
Rosie helped us win the war.
Rosie working all day long,
Rosie working all day long,
built them fast and built them strong,
built them fast and built them strong,
helping us win World War II.
helping us with World War II.
Rosie, Rosie, we thank you.
Rosie, Rosie, we thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. Thank you, Rosies, and thank you, Drill Team. Everybody, I want you all have bells on the table, and everyone grab their bells and get ready. And think of us as part of a long chain of people all across the country. There's even some people in Europe doing it, ringing a bell for Rosie on Labor Day. So let's go, everybody. Ring a bell for Rosie! They're still going. You guys are just like the Rosies. You don't quit. You keep going. So I'm sure they heard that all the way to Normandy Beach. So thanks, guys, and I'm going to turn it back over to Kim.
Do you guys want to have a seat? Absolutely. How about it for the drill team too, guys? So we're going to get y'all up and moving for just a minute or two here. We're going to have the blessing of the Rose Garden and the blessing of our food. And then we will be serving our Rosies and our American heroes up here at this table. And then after we get them served, then I'll be calling you up by table so that I can come around and say hi to everybody at the tables. We'll have 2 lines going through, and the bar is open in the back if you need to get anything. But I'd like to introduce to you at this time a very special friend of the museum, Ken Hines, who wears many hats. And as I asked him, I said, I need a title in my program. And he said, no, you don't. I said, yeah, I do. He goes, you just pick one. So past President Ken of Kiwanis, would you please come up and bless our program and food?
But before I do that, if I could take just a moment, all right? I know everybody's hot and probably hungry, but this is a very special occasion, so I'd like to just take a moment if I can. It's Labor Day, part of Labor Day weekend, and we celebrate all who labor to keep us safe. All the policemen, all the firemen, all the workers on the line, all the Coast Guard, all the military, everybody that is working today that can't be with us because they're doing important services on this Labor Day. You know, in the past, during war times, in this male-dominated world, young men were sent to fight. Women were to stay home and attend to the homeland and family. That was their job. But you ladies have come a long way. Women felt they could help bring their husbands, their fathers, their brothers home faster if they supported the war. So, women decided to balance the task between home life and providing for their families. And we know, gentlemen, we know that women can multitask. So that was not an issue. So, you women, you put away your flowered aprons, you got into your coveralls, you tied back your hair so it didn't get caught in the machinery, and you were going to fight for the war effort in any way that you could. Rosie the Riveter. That is what came about. The symbol of that courage and strength that makes us all so proud shows that women can do hard work just like the males can. Just like we can. We are not, dominant anymore. The ladies are just as able as we are. And you know what together? They put together bombers. Now, how many of you guys out there put together a bomber? They put airplanes together. They put airplanes together. They put bombers together. They went and rolled up their sleeves. But I understand, and maybe the ladies can correct me if I'm wrong, but this was not always received by the men who did not go to war for whatever reason, and the women had to be tough enough to sustain the name-calling and harsh treatment received from these men. Now, in the usual picture, you see Rosie, she raises a raised fisted arm. That didn't mean that she was angry. She was determined That's what she was. To help her country and make this United States a place she wanted to raise her family, and for values that we hope last into the future. Thank you, Rosie the Riveter. Now if we could bow our heads. Heavenly Father, help us to be ever mindful of the beauties around us. May we grow with our flowers in gentleness, patience, courage, laughter, and religion. As we turn to brown soil and plant our seed, may we learn faith in the goodness of the earth, the clemency of the sun, and the fullness of the clouds. And now bless this food to our use and us to your service. Amen.
Thank you, Ken.
You're
so
welcome.
very much. No, I was going to get my bell out and start ringing, though. Beautiful, though. So we are now going to start serving our Rosies. And while that is happening, I would like to tell you about the meal you're going to enjoy while we get their meals prepared for them. I want to start by telling you there will be no chicken on the menu today, and everybody's pointing at her because our Rosie, Virginia, does not like chicken. This is a 1940s meal, a throwback, and our caterer, Cheryl from Choice Catering, worked hard in going back and finding history items that would be on this for us and a few of our other bakers as well. So, did you know that meat was a rationed item in wartime? Sure was. And yeah. Oh, by the way, no Spam is going to be served today. Although when I did go down the aisle of the grocery store, I had no idea how many flavors of Spam there is. Jalapeno, I was amazed. But ground beef, to make it go further, women started to put breadcrumbs in as fillers. And so meatloaf was really invented during World War II. Other meats, of course, that came around, we just talked about Spam, that was canned and was sent overseas. You would not find canned goods. Canned goods were all sent, majority of them, overseas to our troops. Mashed potatoes and gravy will be on the menu today, along with glazed carrots. If you grew it in your garden, you could eat it, and that's why we came with Victory Gardens. Everything was being put in window boxes, planters. They were growing food everywhere. Glazed carrots was made with molasses, and molasses was easier to get because sugar was rationed. Salad, of course, is a wartime favorite, so we'll have that on your Victory diet, and that is what they were called. It was Victory diet. They found out that most of the people during World War II were very healthy because they weren't eating so much meats and that, and they were eating more fruits and vegetables into their diets. Our desserts are special today. Sugar was a very rationed item, and for you to have a special occasion, something like this, or a wedding during the wartime, you would need to get your neighbors, your community together to share their rations of sugar so that wedding cake could be made. So everybody in our community came together for you guys, and we do have delicious cakes back there, cupcakes, and then we have a few new ones, some molasses cakes, some star shortbread cookies, and there's some berries to put on those if you choose. We also have pies available. Fruit pies are back there, and some other desserts that you'll be able to find. So we think you'll find something. Bread pudding was on there. That was another one. So many treats. How will you decide to pick just one? I don't know, but it's on you. So we're going to start.
Thanks, Kim. So the American Rosie the Riveter Association has planted over 150 rose bushes in southeast Michigan, in each rose bush in honor of an individual Rosie the Riveter. And we have 6 rose bushes that are being dedicated today. And first I want to say something. One of my members brought this forward and said, Jeanette, does everyone know that there are no dues to belong to the Rosie the Riveter Association? So you can join the National Rosie the Riveter Association. It's a one-time fee to join. It's like $30 or less. And then you can belong to a local chapter, or as many local chapters as you want, and there are never any dues or fees associated with belonging. So Roberta is going to show the brochures. We have a few of those out on the back table, so if anyone's interested, take a look, or raise your hand and Roberta will hand one to you. So getting back to the Rosie the Riveters today, we have six Rosies to honor: Florence Gillis Campbell, Rose Smith Chesney, Alice Griffin Johnson, Virginia Rodriguez Rush, who is with us today. Say hi again, Virginia. And Anita Toots, Dietrich Flood Saffron, and Clara Perlmutter Lepansky Schultz. So a member of each family is going to come up and tell us a little bit about each Rosie. And then when that is done, then Virginia Rush will cut the ribbon and officially dedicate and open Garden City's Rosie the Riveter Rose Garden. So let's start with the family of Florence Gillis Campbell, and here to tell us about that Rosie the Riveter honor today is granddaughter Rose Freeman. Daughter Rose Freeman.
This is my mom, and she was born on January 12th, 1916 in Sydney, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, Canada. She was one of 17 children. 13 children lived to adulthood. In 1923, that family immigrated to the Detroit area and lived in Corktown. In 1934, Flossie met Stephen Campbell. He was also from Cape Breton, and they got married and settled in the southwest part of Detroit. They had two children, Rosemary and Tom. In 1941, 7 of her brothers joined the service and went off to war. There would have been 18, but the oldest was a senior in high school, already signed up for the Marines, but he got appendicitis, died, and was buried on his 18th birthday. Steve and my grandmother proudly displayed the flag with the 7 stars for her sons that were all in World War II. Steve, her husband, because of his job at Ford Motor Company at the River Rouge plant's job was considered important enough that he was excused from service, and that's what he did. In 1943, my mom started to work at the Ford Rouge plant. I think they were making tanks at the time. She rode the Baker streetcar down Verner Highway, and it went right into the plant grounds. In 1945, my mom and dad hosted a Christmas party. All 7 brothers were there. They had all come home safely from the war. The youngest of those brothers is still living. He'll be 102 in November. He got the Purple Heart because he was wounded at the Battle of the Bulge. After the war, my mom became a nurse's aide and a medical secretary at Providence Hospital, and did that for about 20 years. Like all the other Rosies, she showed fortitude and strength by leaving her home and working in the war plant. But they also showed it in their personal lives. My mom was a young widow at the age of 48. She saw her home go up in flames. She conquered cancer when she was in her 70s. She lost her son, Tom. But she lived to be 97 years old, sharp as a tack to the day she died. I am proud to be Flossie's Rosebud. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you for telling us about Florence Gillis Campbell. And next up to talk about Rosie Rose Smith Chesney is Debbie Ellison.
I am actually representing Barbara Flood, who is Rose Chesney's daughter. She wasn't able to come today, so she wrote a real quick letter this morning for me to read to you, and I'm honored to do that. Everyone knows who Rosie the Riveter was, but our family knew Rose the Riveter. My mother, who led an unremarkable life of daily toil, traded her house dress and broom for a uniform and tools. She became an integral part of the United States war efforts. My mother, Rose, died on August 26, 1990. She died a remarkable woman who dared to shed her house coat and stand up for our freedom. My mother sought adventure wherever she could find it. She even traveled to Spain in her 70s and saw a real bullfight. My mother had a rose garden that lined the fences of our yard in Detroit. She was so like the flower she was named after. She was a beautiful woman, but had the strength like the thorns on a rose bush. As the thorns protected the roses, my mother worked to protect the liberty and the freedom that we enjoy today in the United States of America. I'm interjecting two little stories that I remember that Barbara told me about her mother. The first was that when her mother started at the bomber plant in Ypsilanti, because her name was Rose, the fellow men co-workers would tease her and always call her Rosie the Riveter and even sing the little Rosie the Riveter song. And also, she told me about when she went outside, and all the other ladies, when they went outside on their breaks, when one of the planes would fly overhead, they would tip their wings in acknowledgement to the girls. So my cousin ended her letter with, "God bless America and God bless Rose Chesney." Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you for telling us about Rose Smith Chesney. Next up is the family of Rosie Alice Griffith Johnson, and here to tell us about that Rosie Riveter is her grandson, Jerry Marquette.
Thank you. A little bit about Alice. She was born July 25th, 1912 in Detroit. She had 8 siblings. She used to tell us stories about when she was in her early teens, and it was during Prohibition, and her brother-in-law taught her how to siphon bathtub gin out into bottles. He taught her how to use the siphon tube, and then he was arrested, but she actually kept the business going because her sister was extremely ill and they needed the money. We'd always tease her about, Grandma, oh, bootlegger, kind of cool. And she said, well, you did what you had to do back then to survive. She'd also tell us about when she was 13 years old that they would actually strap money around her waist under her clothes, and she'd have to transfer a couple streetcars to go make payments for something to do with the bathtub gin. So pretty amazing woman. When she was in her late 90s, we decided, we want to capture some of this history. So we brought in a video camera to try to get her telling us these stories. And as soon as she'd see the camera, she'd stop talking. And we tried a couple times and she would just stop. And finally we said, Grandma, why are you stopping? And she said, well, I'm afraid if I say too much, I'll end up in jail. So even in her 90s, she was still concerned about that. She would drive from Canton into Dearborn to see her sister, and she would actually heat bricks on her stove to put in the floor of her old Model T to keep her and the kids warm for the long drive from Canton into Dearborn. When she returned home, her sister never knew if she made it or not because neither of them had phones until Alice would show up on the next visit. Then her sister would knew everything was okay. She worked at Willow Run. She was a bunker. And because she was small, she was 5 feet, maybe, if that was giving her some, maybe. But she could climb in the tight areas and do in the wings and do the work that needed to be done. Of course, after telling us about this, she was quick to follow it up with, but I was tall. She said, I played center on the basketball team in school, and my nickname was Big Al. So she was always quick. Afterwards, she went on to do several jobs. She helped out her husband running a heating and cooling company, and she would, in order to do that job, she'd have to put on blue jeans or overalls. She'd tuck her hair up under a baseball hat that she wore backwards, trying to look like a young man or a boy, because she had to drive a steak truck and make these deliveries to site, and they didn't want to see a woman on site. After her divorce, she was refused loans from the bank because she was a single woman. So she walked into her lawyer's office, who had handled her divorce, and said, you're going to buy a house, you're going to sell it to me on land contract, and that's exactly what he did. And then she went about working 2 jobs so that she could pay off the mortgage extremely quick. She worked in Dearborn schools as a cook, and she was also head housekeeper at the Dearborn Inn, something she was very proud of. She ran a tight ship, and people respected her there. She told us several times about running into the Fords on several occasions as they would rent the cottages or stay in the cottages outside of the Dearborn Inn. She had 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. Her son became extremely ill right after senior high school and was no longer able to drive. He had just taken delivery of a 1969 Firebird convertible, 350 cubic inch engine, high output, and she kept the car. Manual steerings, manual brakes, and it was fast. She'd pull up to a light, usually in Dearborn, and someone with a fast car at that time would pull up next to her and look over and see this little gal sitting at the light, looking through the steering wheel, not over it. She eventually put a phone book down so to raise her up a little bit, but he'd look over and kind of chuckle. But she'd follow it up and say, I beat him every time off the line. And she did. She had a lead foot. In her retirement, she loved baking and sewing. She sewed hundreds of quilts for Lutheran World Relief. She lived on her own till she was 98. When she reached 100, she began giving her age as 101 month, 102 months, and so on. And she said, hey, when you hit 100, you can start counting the months again. And Alice passed away on January 1st, 2013. So thank you very much. Quite an honor.
Thank you, Jerry. Thanks for telling us about Big Al. Okay, next we're going to hear about Virginia Rodriguez Rush, who is with us today, and here to tell you about her is her daughter, daughter Lisa. And I always think she's a granddaughter because she looks so young.
Hi, everyone. I'm here to talk about my favorite Rosie, my mom, Virginia Rodriguez Rush. Mom was born in 1927 and raised in Detroit. My mom was the middle child, having an older sister and a younger brother. A child of the Depression, but better off than many, as my grandfather worked throughout the Depression continuously as a millwright for Ford. In her early teen years, my mother attended Western High School, located across from Clark Park on the southwest side of Detroit. Mom grew up just a few blocks from Clark Park on Brandon. However, in 1942, my mom decided to leave school and get a job. She was in the 10th grade. A friend told her of a place hiring that was just a quick streetcar ride and a short walk from there. The kicker was she was too young to work, so she used my Auntie Gail's name and information to secure the position. My mom took a job working for Republic Aircraft Products. Mom remembers stations being set up in one area of the building. She would sit on a stool and solder nose cones together for airplane propellers. To her left, a bin with the metal mesh framework of the nose cone. She would add the completed piece to a bin on the right. Men would come and load and empty the bins as needed. My mom just had to sit and solder the cones. They would all gather at another area for lunch. She would bring her sack lunch. A fried egg sandwich was her favorite. And then when her shift was over, she would walk to the streetcar and head home. The irony is, Mom never thought she was doing anything special. She wanted to buy new clothes and not wear the hand-me-downs from my aunt. So she went and got a job. It was no big deal, it was just work. However, it and she were a part of the arsenal of democracy. Mom, on behalf of everyone here, I'd like to say thank you for being a woman of action and wanting new clothes and helping out during the war effort, and for all the other work you have done over the years. I love you, and I'm proud of my Rosie.
Thank you, Lisa. And it's always so wonderful to hear these words of thanks and pride, and to know that the Rosie herself is able to hear them too. We have a little something extra for Virginia.
Virginia, we're so glad to have you with us, and we're sure you're tired of getting dozens and dozens of roses, so we are giving you a bouquet of cupcake roses.
Thanks, Kim. And the next Rosie we're going to hear about is Anita Toots Dietrich Flood Safran. And here to talk about her Aunt Toots is Debbie Ellison.
Well, it's a real honor to stand here and represent my great aunt. I decided to tell you about her from the perspective of a child, as that's generally the most contact that I had with her. To me, she was larger than life. My aunt loved to tell a story, and she loved to laugh. Whenever she was around, her laughter would ring out throughout the house, and I loved hearing it, and I loved my great aunt. My great aunt was born in Avon, Ohio on January the 13th, 1908, and was given the name of Anita Dietrich. She had a sister named Irene and a brother named Raymond. Her father owned a vineyard and a winery. During Prohibition, Raymond and another young man named Edward would make deliveries to the speakeasies in Cleveland, Ohio. In other words, some bootlegging was going on. And boy, the things you learn when you start digging into your family history. Now, my great aunt had a nickname, but truthfully, I thought it was her name because it's the only name I ever heard her addressed as, Toots. No one knows how that name came about, but I think I know. You see, my aunt used to work in the vineyards, and she was a very hard worker. But in the vineyards also was another young man named Edward. And yes, he was the bootlegger. And I think that it was Edward who started out with "Hiya, Toots" as a way to get her attention. You see, it could also mean "Hi, pretty lady," and it worked. It wasn't long until they had a budding romance and they eventually got married. Toots and Edward added 2 boys to their family, little Edward and Robert or Bob. Now, when her dad decided to sell the vineyard, Toots and Edward decided to move to Michigan to try to get into the automotive industry. They actually started working at the DeSoto plant together, and they were assembling radiators. Unfortunately, Edward's time on the job ended after he got glass in his eye. He became a stay-at-home dad and unfortunately picked up the habit of drinking. With the advent of World War II and the call for women to work in the plants, Aunt Toots was moved from the DeSoto plant to the Ypsilanti bomber plant. It would make a real long day for her, as she would walk 4 blocks from her house to the bus stop, take the bus to DeSoto, punch in there, get on another bus, and go out to Ypsi. She would work her shift, and then she would start her long journey home. Her son Bob remembers his mom wearing trousers to go to work. And he also told me that his mom worked with midgets. Well, I thought, yeah, sure, that's a story that an adult tells a little kid. But I have talked to a Rosie who worked at the same bomber plant, and she said, "Oh, you mean the little people." She said that they could get up in the small places in the fuselage that others couldn't get into and shore everything up so that the riveters could do their part. Toots was one of the riveters. Well, once Toots got home, her day didn't end there. She loved cooking and baking, and often when the neighbors had a need, such as an illness in the family or a death, Toots would send her boys over with a meal or baked goods. And she was also part of the Christian Mothers group at her church, Divine Child. Now, these ladies would meet weekly to clean the church and make sure that everything was ready for Sunday worship. After the war was over, Toots and Edward divorced. Toots went back to work at DeSoto. She would eventually work her way up to be a glass inspector. In the 1950s, Toots married Anthony Safran. He was a mail carrier. Now, would you believe it wasn't until in the 1960s that my great Aunt Toots got her first car? No more bus rides to work. Toots and Tony took many trips, especially into Canada. Other trips taken were several to Europe, including the Vatican. Now, my great Aunt Toots died on March the 5th, 1979, at the age of 71. I grew up at a time where we were not taught about women's contributions in history. Me and my family are proud that our great Aunt Toots took part in the great female movement that helped make history and paved the way for women. Thank you. And if you give me one more minute, I just wanted to tell you, about 40 years after the war, my cousin Bob met a lady named Barbara. She was supposed to be here. I told you her mother's story. They didn't know it at the time they got married. It was later when they were talking that they discovered that both of them had a Rosie the Riveter for a mother, and they both worked at the same bomber plant. Now, we don't know if they knew each other, but Barbara told me that her mother had a big mouth just like she has, and so she knew everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you for telling us about your Aunt Toots. And next up to tell us about Rosie, Clara Perlmutter Lipansky Schultz, is her granddaughter, Lynn Anderson.
Thank you, Jeanette. Wow. You know, not all Rosies were Riveters. My grandmother was not. My maternal grandmother was Clara Perlmutter Lipansky Schultz. She was born June 1910 in the Jewish village of Ratno, Russia, which is now part of the Ukraine. She immigrated to the United States with her mother and sister in July 1913 on the SS Wyndham, bound for her father already in Denver. She grew up in their farm on Denver. Then, unbeknownst to her Jewish parents, she secretly married their upstairs boarder, Eric Lipansky. He was a Gentile, German Lutheran. So the family disapproved, and Clara and Eric moved to Detroit. Well, after Eric dies abruptly just 3 months before Pearl Harbor, Clara, now she's already an accomplished seamstress and tailoress, she begins to work for National Automotive Fibers at Hoover and State Fair in Detroit. She sewed silk parachutes for the war to support her family, which by this time included my mother Vera, my Uncle Roy, and Eric's mother, who moved in to help raise the children. Clara did remarry once, John Schultz, but they did eventually divorce. Now, Clara didn't talk much about her years at National Automotive Fibers, other to say that it could be very, very dangerous working on those machines. She would frequently get a needle through her nail and lose the entire nail. Now, the building she worked in is still standing vacant today. I've driven by it. And every now and then, one of those parachutes comes up for sale on eBay, thousands of dollars. And I always wonder, did Grandma sew this one? Now, as a former farm girl, Clara knew how to grow vegetables, and she maintained that victory garden throughout the war and beyond. Her garden was a source of pride throughout her entire life, and we learned so many valuable tips from her, such as collecting charged rainwater collected during an electrical storm. She said it would produce better vegetables than regular water. And growing marigolds in between the rows, that encourages bees and pollination. Now, Clara continued working at National Automotive Fibers until the end of the war, not even realizing that her entire family back in Ratno, Russia, was entirely wiped out by the Nazis. So instead, after the war, she began a long career at Fisher Body, sewing leather seats for Cadillac Fleetwoods. By hand, not imported. A lifelong non-driver, Grandmother took 3 city buses each way from her home to the Fleetwood plant, even in a blizzard. She was a strong, dedicated woman who knew how to assume responsibility. In fact, she sewed this leather map pouch for us. I have several of these from the leather from the Cadillac Fleetwoods. I still use these in our glove compartment today. Now, Clara did retire from Fisher Body in the late 70s, and here it's Labor Day, right? She was a proud UAW member until her passing in December 1991 at the age of 81. I am a proud Rosebud and a tribute Rosie on behalf of her, So on behalf of my grandmother Clara and my mother Vera, we thank you for this honor you've bestowed on us today.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for telling us all about Clara. And I'm going to call Kim back up, and she's going to tell you, but we're about to dedicate and cut the ribbon on the garden. So here is our fearless leader and hostess extraordinaire, Kim Marquette.
I'm not paying you more. So, we're going to ask our Virginia that's here with us today, they're going to get her in position over under the Rosie tent. And I would like to ask any of our dignitaries that would like to be on either side helping us hold the ribbon today, if they'd like to go up and join Virginia, now would be the time we can get you in there and ready. In just a few minutes after we get her settled in, we'll ask everybody that would like to, you can get up. I know it's hot and sunny. If you want to come around the Rose Garden area, you'll be able to. But as they're doing that, I want to just say what a pleasure it is to listen to all the stories of these Rosies. Thank you to each of you for sharing your loved ones with us today. I was so touched to hear these stories of these 6 women. They changed the course of the labor force as they stepped up by taking jobs that were very typically held by men. As our Rosie Virginia makes her way over to the garden, we will just like to get this time to thank our supporters out there. We would like to personally thank Cheryl Stanley for her team from Choice Catering, Garden City Business that always comes through for us. That meal was outstanding. Julie, hey Jules, you came over every day once those rose bushes were planted. You checked with a moisture meter, you watered them, you fed them as needed. She helped haul the benches and the fencing here and all the potted flowers that you see. All the potted flowers that you see around, if you would like to take one on your way home tonight, those are courtesy of Barson's Greenhouse. You are welcome to take one. I'd like to thank the Garden City Garden Club for joining up with the Straight Farmhouse to make this dream come true. Pat, all your weeding and trimming, the garden looks beautiful. And she did it all on her hands, her knees, her back. She was sprawled out there, and we have that all on film. So, to the ARRA, bravo, bravo for their dedication to these wonderful women, getting their stories heard, your partnership with us, and making this dream a reality. Here's to our future events. Stay tuned, everybody, because we're already working on a big one, and trust me, you will not want to miss this party. A special shout out to Jacob Dole for our Rosie Bell. Wait till you see this work of art. We'll be unveiling it shortly. Please make time when you come into the garden to ring that bell. So to Jerry Marquette, woo! From digging those holes to planting the rose bushes, for putting up the metal fencing, for the installation of the garden art and this beautiful program that you created for us, and for all your support to me. Thank you for helping me honor my grandmother, my hero, but our Rosie, Big Al. He always has taken my grandma away from me. I think she liked him more. And at this time, everybody else, if you'd like to come on over to the garden and get ready for that ribbon cutting and unveiling, I'm going to ask my daughter and son to go over, and they're going to drop it in honor of their great-grandmother. So anybody else that wants to head over there, now's the time.
Are you ready? 2, 3, 3.